What's up, wrestling fans? My name is Marcus Stewart, and welcome to Call It in the Ring, where we recap and discuss WWE weekly shows as well as pay-per-views. And today we are going to be covering Monday Night Raw, April, what the hell am I talking about? August, that other month that starts with the letter A. Monday Night Raw, August 6th, 2018. We are 2 weeks away from SummerSlam, the second biggest show of the year, and we are trucking our way there. Last week we ended on the big development of Brock Lesnar going hog wild. F5 and everybody, turning on his longtime manager Paul Heyman. We're going to find out where those two stand tonight, as well as focus on Ronda Rousey's Monday Night Raw in-ring debut. She would take on Alicia Fox in the main event. Let's hop to it. So we kick off the show with Kurt Angle and Baron Corbin heading to the ring to discuss Brock Lesnar putting his hands on Kurt, and Kurt not being happy about it. He first compares Brock and Ronda Rousey, saying that Ronda, unlike Brock, at least shows up to work and is going to wrestle tonight. And, you know, if she wins, she'll be a real champion. A real champion, unlike Brock, who, as Kurt stated last week, is the worst Universal Champion ever. Corbin's like, hey, dude, chill. Kurt's like, nah, I got to do something about this. And this brings out Roman Reigns to talk about, hey, maybe if you didn't throw me out last week, I could have protected you. And, you know, kind of says as usual, I'm going to beat Brock. Corbin starts taking shots at Roman, saying that, hey, you know, at least I beat a guy that is a former Universal Champion, unlike you, which sets up a match between the two. Kurt makes an impromptu match immediately between Corbin and Roman. And, you know, this segment was whatever. What I liked about the transition from this segment to the match is that almost immediately Corbin just nails Roman with a cheap shot, which is a nice callback to Roman doing the same to him backstage last week. And these two had a pretty long match. Felt like it went like 15 minutes or so. It went like 2 commercial breaks, I think. And, you know, it was fine. There was a great point where Corbin, he was doing his, you know, when he slides out of the ring to run around the turnbuckle or the ring post to slide back in and do that clothesline. Like, he did 2 of those. Like, you know, the first time he did it, it worked. The second time he did it, it did not work because he ran into a cameraman who was sitting, I guess, standing a bit too close to that ring post. Like, you just see him just fall over, just barreled over by Corbin, who is a very tall man. So that was a nice one. I like that when Roman countered that one, the announcers played up like, hey, maybe if Corbin hadn't hit that cameraman, he might have been able to hit it, but that slowed him down. Just like, okay, nice save there. As Corbin tries to walk out of the match at one point, because he feels he cannot put Roman away, enter Finn Balor to cut him off and be like, nah, son. And then that allows Roman to take advantage, get him back into the ring, hit the spear for the 1, 2, 3. Roman Reigns is the victor. He heads to the back. Finn Balor gets into the ring and sees a golden opportunity, so he decides to get some vengeance for Corbin beating him down last week and hits the coup de grace. And yeah, it's like bad night to be Baron Corbin. He got his. He got, so to speak. This leads to what we see Bobby Roode backstage. He's admiring himself in the mirror. And the entire time he's doing this, I'm fantasizing that his formerly evil self is in the reflection, urging him to return to the dark side, a la Norman Osborn in the Spider-Man movies. Because once again, he is a terrible face, but a really, really great heel. So please turn Bobby Roode heel. Later on, we see Kurt Angle. He makes a tag team match between Dolph Ziggler and Seth Rollins with a partner of Seth's choosing, because Seth is tired of this 2-on-1 crap after getting jumped a week before, and he's like, I need to take them out now. I'm tired of this. That's my Seth Rollins voice. He's got kind of a nasally voice, like look, Kurt, I'm tired of this. I'm tired. I want to be the Intercontinental Champion. Ha, ha, ha. He doesn't do his laugh anymore because he is not evil, but it's hard not to imitate Seth Rollins and not, do that laugh. So, who will Seth's partner be? Tune in to find out. This brings us to our next match. We have Bobby Roode taking on Mojo Rawley. This was a fallout from the backstage altercation that the two got in, and once again, it's kind of sad to see Bobby Roode having to beat having to stand up for the jobbers of the locker room to take on Mojo Rawley, who is somehow a more credible threat than Bobby Roode at this point. I will say that it's nice to see a lower mid-card guy being built up, because it feels like the mid-card, like the actual mid-card, barely exists in WWE anymore. It seems like you're either a main eventer or like an upper mid-card, like pretty much dancing in a main event, or you're like a lower card jobber. It feels like there's very few just a plain old pure mid-card wrestler, and that scene felt like it suffered because most of the previous mid-card champions have kind of been like main event guys or former world champions, and it's hard to see like an actual straight up mid-card dude hold that belt. So it's nice to see Mojo getting kind of remedying that situation. I mean, he's only one isolated case, but it's better than nothing. And I'm feeling him as a villain more and more each week, and I think he could tell he's starting to feel himself in that role. The match with Roode was whatever. It's hard for me to get into Bobby Roode, not just because he's a face, but just his style isn't suited to a face, because Roode wrestles a pretty basic style, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, he's sharp and crisp in the ring, but it's not flashy, and that's fine. But for a good guy, it kind of leaves me wanting more. Whereas as a villain, it was perfect because it let whatever good guy he was up against shine a bit more, because Roode is so basic in the ring, and he just needed to, he doesn't need to do a lot because his charisma backs up everything. So, but I guess it worked here because Bobby Roode won the match, which was questionable. Which, again, it's weird that Bobby Roode beating Mojo Rawley has become questionable. I don't know. I mean, Mojo will probably be fine. This seems like this would have been another nice stepping stone for Mojo. Yeah, okay, we'll see where this goes. I don't think this is over between the two. We see Elias backstage. He's being attended to by a documentary crew. He wants to film a new documentary because the one that was aired on the network last week, which I still haven't watched. I need to watch that because it looks, like I said, it looks really funny. He's not happy with it, so he wants a do-over, basically. This transitions to him heading to the ring to do his usual performance. And, once again, he's bragging about his album, which apparently only has 4 songs, which I was not aware. I've never actually looked at the track listing for that. Still need to listen to that as well. Says the WB Network stands for the Walk with Alliance Network, which was a good, nice little line there. And again, this, he tries to play, he's ordering the documentary crew to film him in different angles, and then he realizes that the crowd is the problem in Jacksonville, Florida. Again, shout out to my home state of Florida. And he's like ordering them like, oh, can we like crop their faces out so, can replace their faces with a better looking crowd. Elias is gold. As, anyone watching is probably well aware at this point, but my goodness, Elias is gold. He is so good. So good. This brings out Bobby Lashley again, who gets into the ring and shows us why Bobby Lashley in any kind of promo is not a good idea. One, because he has that kind of not intimidating turtle man voice that I've mentioned before. And also, he's not a guy I really want to see talk for very long. I just want to see him, like, murder dudes. He's very much like Brock Lesnar. But Brock Lesnar is a more intimidating talker than Bobby Lashley. Lashley just kind of sounds like a child in an overdeveloped body. He's like Shazam, except his voice didn't change. he screamed Shazam and his body changed, but his voice stayed the same. He didn't say it properly. He's like, Shazam or something. But for some reason, because, last week, Lashley and Elias had an altercation, and that led to the singing, but the little duet between the two, which was weird. And then Lashley getting jumped, and in a surprise that he somehow didn't see Elias jumping him coming. And instead of immediately kicking Elias's ass for, assaulting him last week, Lashley just gets in the ring and kind of talks, rips on him for a bit and issues a warning saying that if you say my name again, it's, going to be bad news for you. And it's like, he already beat you up last week. Shouldn't you just jump to I'm going to kick your ass for that now? And then again, Elias goes to leave. He's like, I will take my documentary elsewhere. And as he's leaving, he pulls a fast one where he, does a fake out, turns around, and actually, again, gets the better of Lashley. Somehow Lashley did not see this coming again. And I thought this was setting up okay, this is going to be the one where Lashley is expecting it. No, he hits him with a clipboard or something. Lashley eventually turns it around and gets the better of it. But the fact that he even got hit, and it was actually worse because Lashley didn't even have his back turned this time. He's looking right at Elias and somehow was caught off guard. So I don't know what they're doing with Lashley. His return thus far, outside of some of the Roman stuff, those 2 Roman matches are good. And he showed some pretty, nice... the most he's felt like a badass was during that Roman feud, but between this, him looking like a dope against Elias and then the whole Sami Zayn debacle that the less we talk about that, the better. I don't understand how you could kind of have missteps this bad with someone as seemingly easy to present as Bobby Lashley. So I'm sure this will lead to a match at SummerSlam. We'll see. This brings us to a random... This was just a random ad for the tag match between Ziggler and Drew and Rollins. And I only point this out because Michael Cole's, saying hey, later on these two teams are gonna fight. Who will Seth's partner be? We know who it won't be. Dean Ambrose, who is still out with an injury that from months ago, his tricep injury or whatever it was, and that was kind of it. And I just point that out because it was really weird that he would bring up Ambrose just to say it's not gonna be Ambrose. And oh, okay. I didn't really expect it to be, but I don't know why they felt the need to have him point that out. Because at first I was thinking maybe it will be him, because why would they go out of their way to say that? And I'm glad it wasn't him, because that would have been a really stupid thing to try to throw people off. It's not going to be Ambrose, and then surprises Ambrose. Why would you even put Ambrose back into our conscious minds to potentially damper a surprise if it were to happen? So I don't know. That was just weird to me. And yeah. But speaking of Seth, he's backstage and Tyler Breeze comes up to offer his services as Seth's tag team partner. He pitches the name CrossFit Breezes, kind of a reference to Seth's CrossFit Jesus nickname, CrossFit Breezes, which sounds like Beerus, like Lord Beerus of Dragon Ball Super, which would be a good fusion. If Lord Beerus fused with Tyler Breeze, that would be Breezes. Destroyer God, Destroyer of Fashion. Who knows? Tyler Breeze's next gimmick. Alas, he gets outvoted when Roman Reigns comes in and says, hey, Seth, I'll be your partner. I don't give a damn if I've wrestled tonight. Yeah, I was kind of, on one hand, this makes sense, and I appreciate the continuity in that. Well, yeah, they're brothers, quote unquote, and they should be there for each other, because there's been times in all 3 guys' careers where, since they've gotten back on the same page, one of them, something bad will happen to one of them, and you would think, realistically on paper, if your, super best friend was getting beat up, wouldn't you go out there to help? And then it doesn't. So this is an example of them doing that, right? Of yeah, Roman would step up. Why wouldn't he? But it's just on the other hand of more Roman Reigns tonight. Okay, sure. We've already had one long match with him, so Next up, we had Titus O'Neil taking on Rezar of the Authors of Pain. This is kind of not a rematch, but a follow-up to last week's Akam versus Apollo Crews match in this still just this flat wheel-spinning feud between the Authors of Pain and Titus Worldwide. Michael Cole points out that seeing the AOP in singles matches is a rare treat, despite the fact that we saw Akam wrestle the week before, so we've seen both of them wrestle in single matches in back-to-back weeks. Rezar wins because 50-50 booking. It's pretty much the only real explanation. What does this mean? Does this mean that Rezar is better than Akam, or that Titus is worse than Apollo? It's probably that second one. I'm sorry, Titus. But KO, Kevin Owens. He's got his own show now. He's got the Kevin Owens show, and his first guest is Jinder Mahal. And I like the setup for this because it's set up to like the side of the stage, like to the right of where the superstars walk out. It's just something different than the normal talk show that's in the ring. I like that touch. And they just start talking about, like, you know, Braun Strowman, saying how they both have victories over Braun Strowman, which very few men have done. Kevin is pretty into the whole Shanti-ish, Jinder's Shanti chants, and, you know, finding peace of mind and deep breaths and meditation and all that good stuff. He's getting pretty down with it. He hopes, you know, he's saying he's gonna beat Braun at SummerSlam to take that briefcase. And as the two villains are just having a hearty laugh and a good time, the stage, the floor underneath them starts shaking like a tremor. And they're both like, what the hell? And it does it again and again. And then, as you might have guessed, Braun Strowman is underneath it somewhere. I mean, I'm assuming he was just hiding underneath it. But he flips the stage over, sending them both spilling to the floor. Because Braun is just the flipper. He is the miracle flipper. He can flip anything. He can flip a house just like that, literally and figuratively. One day he needs to flip the ring over. Like, one of my dream fantasies is for there to be like a battle royal. And then Braun he's like part of the battle royal. And what he does is that as soon as the match starts, he just slides through the bottom rope, gets to the floor, and then just flips the ring over and dumps all the other wrestlers to the floor, and he just instantly wins the match. That would be amazing. So maybe one day, but this leads to a rematch between Jinder Mahal and Braun Strowman. Kevin Owens immediately tries to steal his briefcase again, like last week. Once again, it fails, though this time Braun is smart enough to not chase Kevin to the back and get counted out. He goes back into the ring. Kevin comes in again. It spills outside. He's fighting both guys off. And then during the melee on the stage ramp, he hits Jinder with the briefcase, drawing a DQ, which gives Jinder another victory. So Jinder is 2-0 right now against Braun. I'm curious of where Jinder is, like, if this is gonna lead to anything for him, because you know, this is clearly a Kevin Braun feud, and they have their match set for SummerSlam. But with Jinder getting drawn into this and getting 2 victories over Strowman, you know, on paper you would think, like, could he get inserted in that match, the triple threat? I hope not, because we are, you know, Lord knows we don't need another triple threat. But it's just weird that he's getting a bit of a, what's the word I'm saying? Some shine right now. He's getting some shine right now. So it feels like it should go somewhere, but maybe it won't. We see a cool clip of Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns at a house show, and they made a fan, an honorary Shield member, which is, it's always cool to see stuff like that. Stephanie McMahon calls Kurt Angle and tells him something bad. Kurt is sour once again. I like that they've finally figured out how to do this commissioner and general manager situation, because when the brand split first happened, when, you know, Stephanie and Shane were named as commissioners of the shows and they each had their own general managers, I didn't understand the point of both authority figures being on the show, because the idea of the relationship to me sounded like that the general manager would be the on-screen authority figure every week, and that Stephanie or Shane would only, you know, operate behind the scenes and maybe appear every now and then, but not every week, because why, if they're going to appear every week, why do you need a GM? You may as well just only have one of them. And that was a problem for a long time during the first brand split, especially on SmackDown. Raw was too. It was Shane was on SmackDown more, but Stephanie is by far the more annoying character, so they kind of balance each other out. Whereas now with Stephanie just acting behind the scenes like that, it's like, okay, this is better. One, because it saves time from like one of them coming out to the ring and cutting a promo for an announcement that really could just be accomplished in a couple seconds like this. And also, again, it spares us of Stephanie, which I'm always down for less Stephanie on TV. She kind of drives me insane a lot of the times just because of how she's presented as untouchable in a very annoying way. And it reminds me of kind of old school like Jack Tunney. Like history lesson time, everyone. One of my patented history lessons. So back in the day, 80s to like, God, when did Jack Tunney go away? Like mid 90s? WWF, before Vince McMahon was outed as the actual owner of the company, Vince was just a commentator. And to the fans watching at home, that's all you knew Vince McMahon as, was the commentator. You had no idea that he was the actual owner of WWE. And instead, they had a fictional president, Jack Tunney, who, I think Jack Tunney was, in reality, some sort of wrestling luminary. I don't remember off the top of my head. I might be wrong. I apologize if I am. But on screen, he was the fictional president of the company. And for years, it was the case. So just growing up, everyone was like, oh yeah, President Jack Tunney. And he would, unlike a lot of modern general managers, I don't think he ever actually made an in-ring appearance that I can think of off the top of my head. He would have like either pre-taped things at like WWE headquarters where he would make some really huge announcement about a match, or you would just hear his announcements from the commentators of like, oh, this match was set up by President Jack Tunney. And I always thought that was a really good idea because it saves so much time. And a lot of the times when you have general managers on TV, and it varies depending on who's GM, but a lot of the times when they come out and have these long promos just to set up a match, especially if it's not even like a huge match, it just feels like a clear kind of time waster. And I understand because Raw is 3 hours and you got to fill those 3 hours with something, but it's hard not to think like you could have accomplished the same thing just backstage and be like, oh, so-and-so is going to fight. Kind of like William Regal in NXT. And granted, they have to do it that way in NXT because it's only an hour-long show. But it's a more realistic, and it's just, it leaves time for more important things, like more storyline building between the actual wrestlers or matches. So I like that they're using Stephanie's capacity. Like, if you're going to have her, it's a reminder that she really runs the show without her hogging the spotlight. So that was a little tangent for a relatively small little segment, but it's just something I've been thinking about. So there we go. Stephanie McMahon is the new Jack Tunney, is basically what I'm saying. I'm sorry, Jack Tunney. We get a sit-down interview, a pre-recorded sit-down interview between Corey Graves and Roman Reigns, and they're just talking about Roman's history with Brock Lesnar, this 3-year rivalry. And, we see clips of all their matches, or all their solo matches at least. WrestleMania 31 in 2015, where Roman was not able to beat Brock, but because Seth Rollins, of course, famously cashed in his Money in the Bank during the match and walked out the champion, was stealing the win from both of them. But, Roman brings up the great point that, Brock didn't beat me either. Seth beat me, not him. And then, of course, their second match was at WrestleMania 34 this year, where Brock just kind of beat the crap out of Roman and retained the title. And then, of course, their third match at the Greatest Royal Rumble, where Roman speared Brock through the cage. It was a cage match, and technically he won the match, but the ref made a really idiotic call and said that Brock won the match, which kind of kicked off Reigns' his I'm the uncrowned Universal Champion shtick that he's been doing since April. And, it's just kind of Roman saying like, hey, he beat me before, but I've gotten my licks in too, and SummerSlam's going to be no different. Brock doesn't care about this business, all that good stuff. It still didn't really make me want to see the match anymore. But at this point, I'm kind of viewing Roman Reigns as the lesser of two evils, a means to an end, just to get the title back on Raw full time. He is the vehicle for that, more so than, at least me personally, genuinely wanting to see him climb this mountain. This muscle-bound mountain of a man named Brock Lesnar. So, let's see. Roman and Seth are making their way to the ring because their tag match against Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler is up next. Drew and Dolph are already in the ring when they're stopped by Kurt Angle and Baron Corbin, who inform them that the phone call from Stephanie was to inform Roman that he cannot participate in the tag match because she has to protect the main event of SummerSlam, and Roman has already wrestled twice today, or twice that night. Seth is not happy, but he says, hey, I'll figure it out. And Corbin gets a hearty laugh. And which leads to him getting punched right in his injured ribs by Roman for his troubles. So no partner for Seth. It's a handicap match now. During this tag match, it becomes official that Finn Balor will take on Baron Corbin at SummerSlam. But this is a fairly, it's a handicap match. It's fairly decent. At one point, Drew kind of botched a move where he was catching Seth out of midair and tried to turn it into some sort of powerbomb, or not powerbomb, but like a backbreaker. Wasn't too terrible, but it's one of those things that stand out. But try as hard as he might, Seth was not able to overcome the odds, which I like. Seth lost to Dolph Ziggler due to just the numbers game. I like, again, I always kind of roll my eyes when a handicap match is won by the person that has the handicap, because at the end of the day, it's two guys on one. It has to be very special circumstances for that to be okay, like a Braun Strowman maybe destroying two guys, but in this case, Seth fell. This was the right result. So, but I am getting tired of seeing this combination of these three guys fight, which is a common problem with a lot of stories and feuds in WWE, is that, I think I've said this before, is that a lot of the feuds are, let's just have these guys fight over and over until you get sick of it, and then the story kind of stays relatively one note without much evolution. It's just that they fight for one reason, and then it just kind of ends, and you're like, oh, thank God, they can fight somebody else now. We get a history package of Alicia Fox. So they've been hyping up the main event all night, as they should, because it's Ronda Rousey. But we get, Alicia Fox gets a nice package. You realize that they mentioned that she is now the longest tenured women's wrestler on the entire roster. And, which is true. She kind of snuck up in you, because she debuted, at least on TV, for the first time we saw her was in 2008. So she's been there 10 years, I think. I think it's been exactly 10 years, or a little over. But she's definitely hit her anniversary. She made her debut in 2008, if you remember, as the unnamed wedding planner for Edge and Vicky Guerrero's wedding, when Triple H revealed that Edge, prior to the wedding, had an affair with Alicia Fox, and, just to spoil his wedding. And then she became an actual wrestler, was it later that year? Or was it early next year on ECW, which... Here's something you might not remember, wrestling fans or WWE fans. Some really deep cut here is she debuted as the valet for DJ Gabriel. Do you guys remember DJ Gabriel? He was that ECW guy that came out dancing. I think he was English. I think. And she was just kind of his dancing sidekick, and he did not last very long, at all. He is very much the blippiest of blips on the WWE radar. But I don't know, I've always remembered that, and whenever I occasionally bring it up to other fans, they seem to either think I'm making it up or have no recollection of DJ Gabriel. So I want to see now, does anyone remember DJ Gabriel and Alicia Fox? Because that was her first in-ring gig, and she's stuck around ever since. She won a Divas title one time, several years ago, and it was a nice little package, I guess. Michael Cole said that she's been an integral part of every show, which I understand they're being nice, but come on. come on, guys. Alicia Fox, an integral part of every show. Yeah. But cool that they, I guess, honored her like this. The B team comes out and they have an amazing new entrance. They have new music and it's this like kind of cheerleader like thing where it's like B team, B team, B team. And it's got this whole chant. It's an amazing entrance. And it immediately got the crowd hyped and it suits them perfectly. I did like their old song a lot, but I guess it didn't fit the kind of goofiness of the team, but it was a good song. But this is so perfect because it's goofy and over the top, just like they are. I loved it. You should look it up. And they come out to have a tag match with the Revival. The match itself is fine, as most Revival matches are, but it does not last for very long because the Deleters of Worlds, Bray Wyatt, Matt Hardy, suddenly appear in the ring. They take the spots of their respective partners on the apron and proceed to destroy everybody. And we later get confirmation that next week it will be a triple threat match for the tag titles between the three teams. I'm surprised to see that next week. I would have bet on that being like SummerSlam, like on the pre-show or something, but okay, we'll see it next week. We get a sit-down interview between Renee Young and Paul Heyman. A very shaken up and disillusioned Paul Heyman, who is extremely emotional about what happened last week with Brock. Apparently, Renee makes it official that apparently the two have severed business ties. She's asking him, how he's going to bounce back, basically, and he is being, at times, despondent, saying that, I can't believe this is happening. I never thought it would end this way. He's like looking off in the distance. He cries at one point, saying my kids were supposed to be best friends with his kids. I've been trying to contact him through other means, but apparently he's blocked me on his phone. And then Renee eventually asked the most interesting question of since you're free now, is there anyone else on the roster that you would consider taking on as your client? And Heyman kind of sidesteps the question, saying that, who would have thought even just a week ago that, that would be a possibility? Like, how unfathomable that is that? But he just kind of says that, but he never directly says, like, whether or not he would take on someone else. I have a fan fantasy in my head that it's not going to happen. But at SummerSlam, like, if Heyman were to turn on Brock and align with Roman, and somehow Roman turned heel during the match, I don't know how you would do that against Brock, because people are sick of Brock now too, but short of maybe pulling a gun on him, maybe. But I don't know, that's one way that you could signal that, and it would make some sense of, like, now that he's been burned by Brock. I'm going to side with Roman. Of course, Roman would have to be okay with this, but I don't know. It's just something that came to mind, but it's not going to happen. Anyways, we have the Riot Squad taking on the Bayley and Sasha Banks, who are now referring to themselves as the Boss and Hug Connection, which is I don't know if it's a good name, but it is a name. And they got their matching attire, which I do like that. If you're going to team up, have some matching attire. This match was whatever, but the big thing was that it featured the return of Ruby Riott. She appears ringside in a hoodie, helping to assist her teammates, and then pulls the hood off, and we see her. She's got some like red highlights or some red color in her hair now. This allowed Sarah Logan to pick up the win. She is still a Viking, apparently. Apparently, she and her family worships Odin, according to the commentaries. And I guess that worshiping paid off because Odin granted the gift of health to Ruby, which allowed her to make her return. This led to nothing post-match, and so I guess we're not going to get Sasha versus Bayley at SummerSlam, because SummerSlam is next week, and they're still very much on the same page. And I would have thought this was either a short tag team thing that would split and it would, start to kill each other. Unless that happens next week, but that seems like way too fast to like build this up. But I guess you could also make the argument this has technically been built up for like, God, how long has this been going on? Honestly, I've forgotten when did this whole thing really start? Like, has it been like 9 months or something like that? It feels like it's been a long time. So maybe just mercifully, they'll just be like, screw it. we'll just break them up next week, and then we'll just fast track this feud because you know what this is now. So we'll see. I'm surprised that we're not getting more signs of them just having a match at SummerSlam, making me wonder why they even teamed up in the first place this close to the show. I don't know. So this brings us to our main event. Ronda Rousey taking on Alicia Fox with Alexa Bliss in Fox's corner and Natalya in Rousey's corner. I might be the first main event singles match of Alicia Fox's career. I don't know. I'd need to fact check that, but I would imagine so. So, big deal for her. Not big enough to get her own entrance. She actually kind of came out to Alexa's entrance, who was at the forefront. So she basically came out as a lackey. And before the match, Charlie Caruso gets in the ring and has an interview with both of them. And they both talk about how, they're both awesome, pretty much, and how Ronda Rousey's nothing. And this goes on for a long time. Like, eventually, Alexa sends Charlie away, and then they keep talking, and they just keep, bragging and just being villains. And it goes on for a very long time, which, of course, signal that the match itself probably isn't going to be very long, which it shouldn't, because, come on, look who's going at it. And sure enough, as soon as Ronda comes out, she has a little bit of difficulty due to Alicia and Alexa trying to do some cheating, some underhanded tactics, Alicia running away a lot. But once Ronda gets her hand on her, it's complete destruction, as it should have been. It does not last very long. She taps Fox out with the arm bar, which probably would snap her arm because Alicia has very skinny arms. And Ronda gets her first win on Monday Night Raw. After the match, Alexa tries to attack Ronda from behind. It fails miserably. Ronda just kind of casually judo throws her to the ground and has a great kind of like, are you serious face? Like, did you really just try that on me? Which I thought was pretty funny. And sends Alexa packing. Ronda grabs the mic and says, your ass is mine at SummerSlam. And that wraps up the show. So, there we go. Monday Night Raw wrapped up. We got some more SummerSlam build. Again, most of the matches are pretty much set. So, it's, we still got the, maybe the tag title match will make the show. It doesn't necessarily have to, so maybe not. Sasha and Bayley's probably the biggest question mark of what the hell is going on with them. And the show itself was... It was, I guess, kind of par of the course for recent Raw lately. Like, it wasn't markedly better, but not worse. It's just, they've been kind of stagnant, kind of in the same state of like, it's, you can take it or leave it. It's all right, I'm still, like, the main event does not light my world on fire at all. But again, it's a necessary evil to get that title back on Raw. I'm trying to, the stories... are just not as interesting to me as SmackDown is right now, and I explained this in my SmackDown review last week. I'm trying to think of what other story on Raw I'm genuinely interested in, and I don't know. I don't think any of them, any of the stories going on at the moment, are what I have to see. But anyways. Let's bring it to a close. Thanks for listening, everyone. I will be back tomorrow with a review of SmackDown Live. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. The holy trinity of social media. Do all of that stuff. I greatly appreciate it. And if you prefer to listen to this in different ways, you can download and subscribe to the show on iTunes. Just search for Marcus Writes About Games. You can do the same on Podbean via Google Play. Marcus Writes About Games. And yeah, until next time, thanks for listening, wrestling fans. I will see you tomorrow. Adios.